Hi, it's T with Teaquilts, and today is Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021, and we are here at 7 p.m., or actually 2 minutes before, with our live chat. No sewing today, just chatting. I just happened to have my machine on because I was sitting here sewing before we went live. So we're going to wait for people to get in. I'm going to pull you all up on my cell phone, and then we'll get started. All right. So I got 10 people on my cell phone, 14 on the iPad, and my cell phone is always behind. So we're going to wait a couple of minutes for people to come in. I didn't have a topic today, but since we talked about sewing machines last week, I thought we'd talk about needles this week. Keep it going, because I get particular questions that I don't necessarily have a dedicated video for. And so maybe some of these questions that I get about particular subjects can be handled in a 1-hour live chat. And then it's also great for people who are looking at the video later who have these questions, because it also, I'll be reading the chat comments and getting information from you all as well. So that's what's really great about doing the particular product type tech type videos, doing them in a live chat, because it's not just my opinion. You get opinions of other people, even if they don't say the same thing. At least you know it worked for somebody else doing it this way versus another way. So that's what I do like about the chat. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to do the sewing machine talk about what sewing machine should a person buy. I wanted other people to chime in on that, because I don't want to be in the business of telling people what type of sewing machine to buy. So it's 7 o'clock. We got a few more people in. I think comments are coming up, but they're not hitting my phone. So let me go back out and in again. Yeah, so I got more comments now. So I just seen Maxie Doodle pop on the screen, and I just saw it here. So I want to make sure that the chat's keeping up anyway. Okay. So we've got Quilt Gal here. She says, hi, T and everyone, from rainy, now cool weather, Maryland. Changes, don't it? Bonita Nance is here, says, hey, Miss T and all. Teresa McCormick says, howdy, T and all. Bonita is also reminding people to thumbs up while you're waiting. Thank you, Bonita. Betsy Lightens here says, hello, one and all. Maxie Doodle says, hi, T and everyone. Win Sprinter says, good evening, T and everyone. Darlene Crosby's here saying, hello, T and everyone. Jackie K says, hello, everyone, from Chile, Canada. Vivian Calvy's here, says, hi, T and everyone. Mario D says, hello from Montreal. Cool here, too. Finally, 22 degrees less than yesterday. Kim Burris is here, says, hello, T and everyone. And Deborah Quilts is saying hello. T and all Teaquilters. It's a little bit of a break in there. Elaine Doucette's here. Hello, Elaine. Welcome back. Good to see you. Sandra Aggers here says, hello, all. Leela Dicker is here saying, good evening, everyone. Glad to be here this evening. Judy says, hello, T and Quilters. Ella Odom says, good evening, Miss T and T Quilters. Deb Allen. Hi, Deb. Welcome to the channel, or the chat, live chat. She says, hey, T and company, rainy day in Boston. Don Cunningham is here, says, hello, T and fellow quilters. Amelia Rubio says, Hello, Miss T and everybody. Hope everyone is doing fine. Elaine says, dang, chilly 13 degrees Celsius. Northern Ontario. C-Rex says, hello, fellow quilters. It's live with T. Yay. So, yes, we've got Susan T. Hi, Susan. She says, hi, T and all T quilters. Happy to be here. And Doris O also is here, says, good evening, T and T quilters. I hope everyone is having a good evening. Claudette Bettis came in, says, hello, T and everyone. And everybody else is saying hello to each other. So, let's see. Katrina just came in, says, hello, Miss T and friends. And Tom Eckery is here, says, hey, T and T quilters. Hit the subscribe button and thumbs up. Thank you, Tom. Elaine says, thank you. Hoping to be here every Tuesday, not Wednesday. Yeah. That is funny. Yes, until that plan changes, right? We're going to stick with Tuesdays. So, yes. So, today's topic is probably not one a lot of people need, but probably will help new quilters. But I do get questions about needles as well. And I think people, as we quilt, we tend to forget about our needles. You ever know that there are things that you know you're supposed to do, but you just don't do it? And so this is also one of those topics that even for our veteran quilters, we know we're supposed to change needles, but we don't. Just trying to make sure no one new came in. So the importance of a needle, it's the most critical part in your sewing process. And the reason why is that there's basically like 3 ranges of needles that you need to use depending on your particular fabric type. So, and then it's also important that you change your needles more frequently. I am guilty as well, where I would make maybe 3 or 4 quilts or even more sometimes, not thinking about it, before I even change my needle out. And technically, the rate of changing your needle is mostly set for garment sewing, which doesn't even take that many seams. It's like you're supposed to change your needle per every 2 garments. So it's like, okay, that means we're changing needles probably in the middle of a quilt somewhere, if that was holding true. So let me put this fan on high, guys. I forget when I cut all these lights on that it gets a little hot in here. So I think even us veterans, we forget that we're supposed to change our needle. And why do we want to change our needles as frequently? Sometimes when you're looking at your stitches and your stitches don't look straight, or if your machine is sewing loud, even after you've oiled it and it's still sewing loud, the reasoning could be that it's a dull needle. A dull needle makes a popping noise. A dull needle deflects so that it may not sew in a straight line all the time. So if you're having some difficulty with what you're thinking is tension or feed dogs or something like that, it could be that you just have a bad needle. So let me go ahead and just welcome in the other people that are coming in. Phyllis G says, hi, T and everyone. Melissa LePage is here, says, good evening, T. Love your t-shirt. Thank you. And June Hansen says, hi, T and everyone. We have been getting some much needed rain this evening. That's great. Barbara Polk also is here saying, hi there, everyone. And Vicki Lemire is saying hello as well. And Mario is asking a question about what needle to use for paper piecing. And we'll talk about that. Hopefully, if I don't forget, just put it back in the comment section later, because I don't want to start with that. I don't want to start answering questions before I got my little cheat sheet over here. I just want to make sure that I'm covering the information that's basic first and then get into answering any additional questions. And I did not have on here what needle you should use for paper piecing, but we'll talk about that. So if you don't know the different parts of a needle, I'm not going to really get into that, because you can just Google and get a screen or an image of a needle, and you'll know exactly what parts of the needle is called. But basically, we're going to be talking about the shaft, which is how thick a needle is, and then the point, which is what type of point is on the end of that needle and why it's important. So you've got like different types of needles. And let me just make sure I give them to you right. Oh, it's actually not on there. It's on the back of my Singer stuff. I forgot where I read it. I don't see it right now. But basically, you've got a sharp needle. You've got a sharp needle. It's like your top stitching needles. Things that when you're top stitching, especially like something like denim, you need a really super sharp needle. You've got your universal needles. And then basically you've got your ballpoint needles. And those are basically what you're using for any type of straight stitching. There are specialty needles, but basically those are your three types that you'll be using for piecing. And we're going to just briefly go over some of the needles. I've got all of my needles, well, not even all of them. This is just some of them. I got needles in here, and I just pulled a few of my Singer needles. And you've got different sizes of needles, and I'm just going to read off the size ranges and what they're recommending that particular needle for overall. So if you're for lightweight fabrics, you should be using a needle that's 60 to 70, or it's 7 through 10. You know, we've got the metric, I guess they're metric numbers. I'm not really sure when they say like 90-14. I use the last number in the USA. We call our needles by the last number, so I'd say for needles that are 7 to 10. For medium weight fabrics, we've got needles from 10 to 16. And then for your heavyweight fabrics, we've got 16 to 20. So those are our different sizes of needles that we use. And then we're going to go a little bit into the points. So your universal needle, again, is just used for general sewing. It's known for its slightly rounded point. Remember we said we had universal needle as well as a sharp. And a sharp is different than a universal needle. A ballpoint needle is used when you're sewing on stretchy fabrics like knits. So you don't want to use a needle with a point because it will put a hole in your knit, whereas a ballpoint needle will go in because it has a rounded base. I cut my fan up and that was blowing my my notes. But a ballpoint needle will go in and spread those knit fibers apart and go in. It won't pierce it and put a hole in it like a sharp needle will. And then you've got your sharp needles, which are mostly used for your top stitching, like I said, for your denims and things like that. So we're going to just talk about those because those are basically what we're using for a straight stitch, and then we'll talk about how people are getting into better grades of needles and things like that. And I'm going to start with the Singer needles because I started sewing on Singer sewing machines. Now, I don't know if it's as true as it is today as it was before, but I've got a couple of machines, my CXL and my XL 1000. Those two machines, they're older Singer, they're computerized machines. They got decorative stitches, you got memory. And if I use a Smith's needle in it, it just doesn't like Smith's needles. Singer manuals always tell you to use Singer needles. And I know that sometimes we think that that's controversial because Singer is the one making the needle, Singer made the machine, you know, and so any company can come out and say only use Brother needles in the Brother sewing machine. But I personally feel from years and years of experience that Singer needles do work better in those two machines. Now, when I get to my featherweight though, universal Smith's needles will work. So I don't have any issues with using Smith's needles in those, and I've never even put a Singer needle inside of my featherweight sewing machine. So you have to get to know your machine as well to know what style of needles your machine may want to take. And then on the Singer brand, and probably on Smith's too, I haven't looked. I'm sure they got different colors. Let me see real quick. I don't have a one size right there. because I didn't pull out every needle I had. But Singer needles, they color code their shafts so that you know what needle it is when you're first looking at it. And that's one of the things that people are always asking. How do you know what needle you have in your machine? Singer has done a great job of color coding, and I think Smiths only do it on certain types of needles, but they don't do it on their universal needle by size, and Singer does it by size. So I just want to give them a hands up, thumbs up on making needles and letting you know what size it is based on the color that's on the shaft. And this one here is purple, if you can see it. It's a red top, which means it's for universal sewing of cotton fabrics. And then it also has purple. And then I have probably another one here that's orange. And you can kind of see the coding on this packet. I've already used some of these needles. But this is a titanium needle, which is a gold needle, so you know the difference. And this is Singer ballpoint needles. They always have yellow at the top instead of red. So just so you know the difference. And then I do want to encourage people to, I don't buy size 20 needles, but I do buy size 18 needles. And I use those for whenever I'm doing handles on my tote bags. You're sewing through a lot of different thicknesses, and you're going to need a heavy duty needle. So please invest in size 18 or size 20 needles when you're doing top stitching, or if you're going to make like those jelly roll rugs or the rope bowls or rope coasters, anything along those lines. When you're sewing on something thick, you need a heavy duty needle. And you need to slow down when you're sewing. This is not the time for speed sewing when you're going around things, when you're sewing on something that's super thick, like a rope, denim, tote bag handles, or the jelly roll rugs when you fold it in 4 layers of fabric. Plus, you've got batting in there that's folded 4 times. So you got to think about what it is that you're actually sewing over. So that's my recommendation on that. And it doesn't, and size 18 and 20 needles, they also come in all brands, so it's not like I'm saying by the Singer brand. I just pull that one out, so I remind myself to tell you to make sure you have some of those in your stash. We're going to go to Smiths. Has universal needles, and the same thing that I talked about with Singer. And Singer has embroidery needles as well, but I'm going to the Smiths brand at this point. And I tend to buy size 11 for some reason. That's what I buy. I just buy a lot of them for machine embroidery. I also use bobbin thread when I'm doing machine embroidery, so maybe that's why I get the smaller needle. But if you feel you need a larger needle, you shouldn't be sewing over dense machine embroidery. If so, it's just a badly digitized design. So you shouldn't have to use a high needle. I've been using size 11 Smiths needles in this Elissimo, Baby Lock Elissimo from the beginning and haven't had any issues. I use it so much. This is how many packages I have of those needles to make sure I have them, because I get them whenever I can buy them on sale. And then you can also get embroidery gold titanium needles from Smiths that are embroidery as well. And I just have 1 pack. I think I was going to try it out. And this actually is a size 14. So that's another reason it'll probably not get used too fast. But if I ever come across some really dense machine embroidery, then maybe I may do that. Or if I'm using embroidery stitches on my machine and I'm sewing like on top of, I'm decorating a tote handle strap, then I may want to put in this size 14 embroidery needle. So that's ball jeans. We're just looking at some of the Smith stuff. Universal. Metallic needles. That's another needle that sometimes beginner sewers don't know is out there. Is metallic needles. And they are used when you're sewing on metallic threads. I happen to have one right here. I'm not going to unwrap it. It's in the cone there. But yeah, metallic threads are a little bit more difficult to go through the machine, and the metallic needle also has a larger eye on it. And this one just happens to be a size 12. And on this, it's not stating that as the hole is still bigger than an average size 12. So it's still going to put a size 12 hole, but it's actually a bigger eye. So that's a good needle to have in your repertoire. That's a Jeans. We're going to come back to that one. Then you also have actual quilting needles. Now, I have these in my stash. I bought a lot of them. They're size 80, which is, I think, a size 12, yeah. So they're a size 12 needle. And I don't really use them a lot. I got these, must have bought them in bulk at a quilt show or something and got them on sale because I got a whole bag of them. And I just don't use them a lot, but they are quilting needles. And it says that the eye is larger to accommodate short staple rayon and metallic threads. So that's what the needle is actually used for. But it's called a quilting needle. So there are those out there. Another needle that's available, let me go back and get the one I skipped, or twin needles. Sometimes you may want to do top stitching. I'll just put this up here so you can see it. One needle goes into your machine, but you can thread 2 different threads in your machine, and you're going to be using your second spool holder, and they all different on every machine, so there's no need for me to show it to you on this Bernina. But you have to figure out how, look in your manual and see how you can put 2 threads into your machine. And you can put 2 threads in, and you can do a double line of top stitching that way. You can also do some decorative stitches with it as well. So it's not just, it is decorative still, but you can do designs with it as well. You just got to make sure that that twin needle, you can't, they come in different widths apart. Those needles together, they come in different widths apart as well. So when you pick a decorative stitch, you may want to hand turn your wheel, so you make sure that the twin needle is not going to hit your foot, your presser foot, and break. So I do that by hand and through my whole design on just a scrap piece with no thread in it, just to make sure that my needle is not going to break before I go slamming down on my presser foot to start sewing. So you got to be really careful with twin needles, because some people don't realize that they come in different widths apart. And some machines only sew 5.0 millimeters apart, whereas others can go up to 7 or 9 millimeters. It just depends on what brand machine you have. And then the last, like, different type needle, I probably got some other needles in here. I even got Class A needles from Nancy Notion's company. They had their own brand of needles. And I even got, let me see if I can find one here. Yes. Wing needle. This is a size 19. This is a 16. But a wing needle, a lot of people don't know about it either. It has a really large, it's a really long hole. Hold on. It's hard to see through the plastic. No, it's not a long hole. It's just a flat needle. I'm going to try to hold it and let you see it. I always thought it was a long hole, but it's really flat. And what it is that it goes into the eye of the needle. It goes into the fabric, and it actually punctures a hole. Now, that hole will normally have some kind of decorative stitching stitched around it, like a grommet hole, and then it stitches around that hole so that you see a defined stitch. It's kind of like making lace or something like that. So that's what your wing needles are. And I think I've talked about all the different needles. Okay, so Mario asked a question, so we're going to start with just quilting, because we're quilting. And what needle do I use to quilt with? It would be my size 11, my 75/11. That's the one that I use for piecing. On my Singer, I used to use a size 14 and realized that I could go down to a size 11. And so I've been using a size 11 ever since. It just means that it's putting in a smaller hole in my fabric, which I like. For if I was garment sewing and I was sewing on, you know, like your garment sewing, it's going to be thicker than most cotton-based fabrics. And so I probably would use like a size 12 or size 14 needle. Because when I was using just Singer, they don't have size. They have 11 and then it goes to 14. So I would use a size 14 needle for garment sewing. And if I was sewing on denim, then of course, my first pass, I might use my size 14, like when I'm sewing 2 pieces of denim together. But anytime I've got to start top stitching or making more layers, like finishing off those seams and the types of seams you use in hemming denim, then I most definitely went to a denim needle at that point. If I was doing a rag quilt, I would most definitely use like a bigger needle, size 14 or 16, just to give myself some extra room, even if it's just 2 pieces of flannel. If it's denim, I most definitely would use a 16 or 18 if I'm doing a denim quilt. Denim rag quilt. And I definitely would not be trying to make those seams match up on a denim quilt. I just wouldn't do it. It's just too thick. It's too much. And when you have really bulky seams meeting up, like in rows that are like a consistent row, like it's a block, you can tell that the blocks are all in rows. I do mine in columns where I may start one row with, say, if I got a row of 10 blocks. My next row might have 2 half blocks and 9 full blocks so that they're offset, because I find in rag quilts, if you offset the seams over putting them straight in line with each other, your quilt will last a lot longer. I have one that's on my bed. I got holes, my toe poked through holes all the time. I've repaired that quilt and repaired that quilt, and I've said I'm not repairing it anymore. And that's because I made that, I feel used rag quilts, they just destroy easily because of the seaming. It's just too much going on in that intersection. So, let's see. Let me see if you all, paper piecing. That was Mario's question. He says, what size needle do you use for paper piecing? Now, a lot of people do, in instructions will tell you to use a needle, a larger needle. I don't necessarily change to a larger needle. Whenever I paper piece, after I finish paper piecing, I know that I'm going to get rid of that needle, so I don't change the needle. I go ahead and use my same standard 11 needle for paper piecing. But what I do is I reduce the stitch length so that I have more stitches in an inch. So I might stitch, my regular stitch might be at 2.0 or 2.25. When I paper piece, I might put it down to 1.5. That way I'm getting more holes in that space, and it makes it easy for me to tear the paper off. So that's what I do. I don't increase, because once you're paper piecing and you finish with that needle, if you put in a brand new needle for paper piecing, you're going to need to throw that needle away because it's been stitching through paper. So I just don't do it. Another fabric that anytime I sew through it, I change my needles. If I'm making a batik quilt that's all batiks, I change my needle afterwards. Batiks are very stiff, closely woven fabric, and the needle is going to be messed up. And I also do that on my long arm. Anytime I quilt somebody's quilt with a batik fabric, I hate when I get the front and the back is batik. I prefer people to give me the batik front and try to find a batik-like, look-alike fabric for the back, because it's just better. The tension is just better. It's harder to get tension. Even on the long arms, you have to play around with it a little bit when you've got batiks on top and bottom. So I definitely change my needles every time I've quilted a batik quilt. So let me go back and see who else has come in. If you all got questions, or I want your tips too on needles, because I could have missed something. I mean, I didn't like go down my cheat sheet here. So if you all got a question about a particular needle or how to do something, then you can go ahead and ask, and we'll try to help you. If I don't know, maybe somebody in the chat room will know. Let me go back. I know I said, I think the last thing I said was Vicky Lemire says hello. Let's see if that's correct. Elaine says, thump, thump, thump. My mother would yell from the kitchen, change your needle. Yes. If you are paying attention, you can tell by the noise level when you need to change your needle. Judy Plaster is here saying hello, T and everyone. Have a good evening. Hi, Judy. Angela Stringer came in. Good evening, T and quilters. One opinions on straight lines too. And that's what I was, we talked about that. Sometimes your non-straight line could be due to a dull needle that's deflecting. So sometimes it's not just tension that's causing your line not to be straight. You might want to check your, make sure your thread's in the thread guide if you're not getting a straight line. Change your needle, or maybe your needle is too big for the fabric. So you might want to check that too. So it's things you can check before you start taking your machine in for repair, saying I'm not getting a straight stitch. And then also today, I happened to come in here. I sewed batting because I had a customer's quilt that's bigger than the batting that I have. She wanted polyester, 80-20, not a polyester. She wanted 80-20 batting. And it's 96 inches. It's the largest roll that I have here. So I had to piece batting. So I took off my plate because I use a straight stitch plate. And I took off my foot to get an open toe foot. And I zigzagged my batting. Well, I programmed in the Bernina that I had changed all of that. So when I went back to straight stitching, I forgot to program Miss Bernina that I was finna go into, because I had been zigzagging, that I'm back now to just straight piecing. And when I pieced my first block, it knew that I had on my single throat plate, so it would not even do the zigzag. But it made this little curvy line. And I looked at it and I go, why is this thing curvy? And I'm like, oh, it just must be the first I was thinking, oh, it's the bobbin. And then I realized, I go, no, you need to change your settings on your machine. So sometimes it could be your machine settings. Sometimes you can accidentally punch a stitch, especially on electronic model sewing machines. You may accidentally punch in something and not know that you punched it in. But in my situation, my case today, I did not reset my stitch back to a straight stitch. And so it was my fault. But my machine had thank God, because if it was on a regular machine that wouldn't tell you that or make adjustments, I would have broken the needle today. And I don't like breaking needles because I'm always scared that they're going to pop up into my face or something. And that's one of the reasons I'm glad I wear glasses. It's for stuff like that, where things break and fly apart and stuff like that. I got some protection to my eyes at least. So, but yeah, you gotta do some investigations, get to know your equipment. Maybe your thread is too thick, so you've got to make sure you've accounted for everything before you go taking your machine in for service. And then it's something very simple that you've paid over $100 to get machine service, and it was just you had accidentally put in a top stitching thread or something like that, and you're piecing with it. So you just gotta, backtrack and check everything. Maria Mayer's here saying hi, T and everyone. Barbara says, hey, can you fix your mic because the fan is blowing hard? It sounds like you are in the wind. Sean Hickman says, hello, T and friends. Hi, Sean. Carla Wilson is here, says Viking needles work best on Viking machines. And if you've got that machine, I have not owned a Viking, and that's some of the stuff that I want you all to put in here. What do you feel is your best needle for your machines? Because even though I'm using size 11, it works on my Baby Lock, it works on my Bernina. Maybe your Foth likes a different size for when you're piecing. So looking for information like that. So thank you so much for sharing, Carla. Doris says, T, what do you think about Oregon brand needles? I do have Oregon brand needles. And I remember using them for a period of time. And then for some reason, I just stopped. And I don't know why. I think it was just, I started getting so many needles and so many different types for so many different machines that I just stopped getting them. I wish I had a price on here because I'm wondering if it was price. But I got 25 needles in here. These are size 16, so I got the wrong size on that, so that's why I'm not using it. And then this one's size 18, so that's why I'm not using them. And I must have used all of my smaller sizes and just never rebought them. And I haven't seen them like in my local quilt shops, although I have not been looking for them. But I think I do like Oregon needles because I do have some here. I think I just used all of my size 11s or 12s. So I don't have that size in my stash. June says, I use 14 and use Smith's needles. I never knew there was Viking needles. And I didn't know that either. But now I do know that Bernina has needles. I don't necessarily know if they're Bernina needles or if they're just in a Bernina case. So I feel like sometimes you've got to see if there is a difference, like, are they color coding it so you know what's in it before I go buy that over Smith's? Why would I buy a Bernina higher price needle over Smith's if they haven't done any extra work for me? So you've got to look at that too. But you can always just buy a pack, especially when they put them on sale, and you can test it out in your machine just to see if you like it. If you like it, then you can put it on your future purchase list next time they go on sale. And if you don't like it, at least you didn't invest a whole lot of money in it. Or if it didn't make a difference, because cost is, if we're wanting you to change your needles more frequently, then we also want changing your needles to be cost effective as well. My brother came in, says, hi sis and everyone. You got my thumbs up already. Thank you, sir. And June says, I have some of those needles, Kim. I guess I just forgot. Yes, and that's the other thing. That's the whole purpose of this topic. I know a lot of advanced sewers know what we're supposed to do. It's just a reminder to do it. It's like anything. You're supposed to do something and we don't do it. It's everything. It happens in life and everything. And it's like, better. Like when you have a trainer come on your job and they're telling you about how to do something more efficiently and stuff like that. You already knew, had been trained, been told that years ago, you knew about it, but you just weren't implementing it. So this is like a refresher for you guys as well. Don says, when using a larger needle, say for denim, are you reducing the pressure on your foot on the knob on top of the machine? If you have to adjust your presser foot, you can. I know that most of my machines, they are automatic adjustments. They know what you're sewing over, and so I don't have to make as many adjustments, but you can definitely change the pressure of your presser foot. I don't even know how to do that on here because I haven't sewn that, but I know that I've seen in videos where they have not changed on the Bernina. My Baby Locks and my Singer, they automatically adjust for the thickness, so I don't have to do any changes. I've just never sewn anything thick on here yet other than like putting batting together, and I think I've quilted some placemats and I didn't have to change the needles on that. Damali J is here. She says, hi, Tea and Quilters from Oxon Hill, Maryland. Hello and welcome, Damali. Elaine Doucette says, great info, new to me, wing needle. Wing needles is mostly used in heirloom sewing, mostly. Like if you're making a christening gown, wedding dresses, things like that. That's when wing needles come in. But us crafters, we can start putting that feature of having that hole and putting a piece of ribbon either through it or under it to add some other color. So that's kind of how you would use that wing needle. Eric Oda came in. Hi, Eric. Kim's reminding everybody to thumbs up and subscribe, share, ring the bell so you get notifications. Thank you. Cynthia Shade came in, says good evening to all from Chicago. And I'm about 10, 12 minutes behind in the comments because a lot of these people came in when I was talking. If you need to change needles between projects, I put the gently used needle back in the original package upside down. Yeah, because sometimes, like, say if you are using, you need to use a top stitch needle because you want to stitch on top of a strap, a purse strap or a tote strap, and you've only used it to stitch down the center of 2 straps. Yeah, I would put that needle back. And, you can make markings on the package, just to get you some permanent markers or some Sharpie markers where you can write on it that, you use one time for straps or something. You can start writing on it, and you can also attach stuff, put it in a baggie, things like that. So I do reuse my larger needles because I don't use them often. So I do reuse those. And my twin needles, stuff like that, I do reuse. Wash your hands says it's the size printed on the needle. If the needle is not in the package, is there a way to know the size? And the answer to that is no, and that's why I started with the Singer needles, because they have the color-coded bands that tells you whether it's a sharp needle, a universal needle, or a ballpoint needle by the color on the shaft, and then they also have a color for each size of needle. So Singer is the only one that has followed through on that from start to finish. I do have some Smiths, and I thought I had a Smiths embroidery needle. Let me see if I can find it. That has color. This is the titanium one, so that's not what I'm looking for. On the embroidery needle here, they have a red shaft on the size 14s. If you can see that. So that way you can tell. But otherwise, let's see. These are all embroidery needles in here. Size 11. Because I didn't pull out all of my needles. I just pulled out some. So it looks like all of their embroidery needles are red bar. And so it doesn't have the size that you can read it. Now, you know how small a needle is. It could be printed on there and we can't see it. But for the most part, that's when people get into using the tomato pincushion, where they'll mark the different sizes of the needles onto the tomato pincushion and then use those sections to put your used needles in. So a lot of people do that. I don't do that because I don't really go into a whole lot of extra needles. I don't change to different types of needles on a regular basis. It's only when I'm making tote bags or sewing on denim that I'm changing for the most part. And that was because I don't really sew a whole lot of clothing right now. But if you're sewing clothing, you're definitely changing into different types of needles. So it's a little bit more critical. So, but people do use that. And there's even magnetic boards that have like a flap that close down that also will sort your needle. So you might want to look, Google and see use needle sorter where your needles aren't like ready to be trashed yet. You only used it for like 10 minutes and you want to recycle that needle. You might want to look that up. Try to Google that. Nancy Gus came in. Welcome. She says hello to everybody. Jackie's, I don't know. They're talking to each other. Mario says, very interesting, Chi. Thank you. So Elaine must have given a tip. So let me see if I can go back and find it. Oh, okay. She was saying that's the one I read when she said she puts it in a package upside down. Okay. So, and people are saying that that's a great tip. So thank you, Elaine, for that. And that's what we're here for. We're trying to give people some tips, help out new sewers that don't know the difference between one needle and the next. So that's what we're here for today. Jackie says, a good idea, Elaine. I usually put it in fabric and write what it is. I don't even have a red pincushion in here. I probably got one because I collect pincushions in it's on top of a shelf in my long arm room. But I have never really used the red one once I went to quilting. I got into the old fancy pincushions and kind of left the red pincushion alone. Darlene says, do you use microtex needles? Yes, I have that. I don't know if maybe I didn't mention it, but I do have those too. And I like those as well. Maybe I didn't pull them up. Yeah, I thought I did. This is Smith's Microtex needle, and then I think I even got like a brand that says it's Microtex, but I have to see if I can find it. Like I said, I didn't pull out all of my needles. I pulled out this container because I didn't want to dismantle it because they're sorted by type. So those are universal. I got Microtex, Smith's Microtex. And I thought I had, maybe I used them all. Because they would be in one of these, this container here if I had it. Let's see. Even got Kenmore needles when I had my old Kenmore machine. Top stitch. Oh, no, maybe I used them all, but I have used Microtex needles. I thought I talked about that because you could also use them for metallic threads and stuff. They're better than a universal needle. Metallic needle. Maybe I didn't. I must be out of them. I got Metafield needles. So I must be out of them, but I have used them in the past. So I think those needles are great too. And it might be, I'm wondering if that's what I'm also using on my Gamma. I can't remember right now. I didn't bring any of those needles in here. These are just needles in this room here where I do my piecing for the most part. And Jackie says all my Janome machines like 11s or 75 per piecing as well. See, I just like size 11. It's a smaller hole. I didn't feel I needed the size 14. And I had sewed with size 14 for years because I was using 14 for clothing. And so when I went to quilting, I just continued to use size 14. And then I realized, let me try size 11 and realize that works just as well because our quilting thread is our piecing thread for quilting is a little thinner too. Industrial machines don't take any old needle. You have to get specific sizes and specific brands. And that's something that's different. And thanks, Eric, for that, because we're talking about regular home sewing machines. We're not talking about industrial machines. I didn't even talk about long arm machines. This is just for regular sewing machines, home sewing machines. Cam says, I have 2 Vikings. My little Daisy is 19 years old and will use the Smith's needle brand with no issue. My Topaz will only use the brand recommended for Viking. Sue is here. Hi, Sue. She says, good evening, all. I have used nothing but Smith's needle in all of my 40-plus machines. Vintage Singer, Benina, Falk, Brother, and Baby Lock. Cool Girl says, Janome likes size 12 and 14 for piecing. And Win Sprinter says, my dealer recommends Smith's needles for my Bernina. Mario says, my needles are Smith's. Bonita says, I read recently a suggestion to use ballpoint needle for embroidery. What do you think? I only use the embroidery needle, which has a point. All of my embroidery needles have points. So I have not tried to use a ball needle for machine embroidery. I would be really scared to do that if it was a really dense design as well. It would scare me because there's so many, it's a buildup of stitches. Remember when you were embroidering as well that there's an underlay. It just depends on how it's digitized. If you're doing just applique, maybe it's not. But if you've got a field pattern and it's got a dense underlay and then it's got the overlay with a design on top, it's just getting denser and denser. So I don't know if I would do that. And then cotton, most of us are sewing on cotton fabric, even when we're embroidering, it doesn't call for you to use a ball needle. So I don't know, Benita. I don't. Maybe your source is good and they've done it for years and it works for them, and and that's okay. But I personally use regular embroidery needles that are sharp, that has a point. Hey, Tiffany came in. She says, "Hi, T and friends. I'm late, but I was napping. Good for you. Get some rest." Cool Gal says, "I could use my machine to go into zigzag. I thought the computer went bad. It would only straight stitch. So after thinking all day, I had the single hole plate on the machine as I changed it to zigzag." Yep. So it's a combination of both. And I'm glad that, on my other machines, I would have broken the needle today. And Bernina prevented me from doing that because it knew that I had changed that plate. It has sensors on it. It also knew that it could not stitch a zigzag. So what it did was it stitched the largest zigzag it could stitch in my single hole plate, which was a wavy line. Looked like a miniature serpentine stitch. It was pretty funny. The size is stamped on the actual needle. Take a picture and enlarge it with your phone. Okay, thanks for that advice, Benita, because I can't see it with my eyes. So I cannot see whatever they got written on them needles. I can't see it. So that's probably a good idea too, is you can, with us having cell phones now with cameras, to take a picture. So great tip. This is why I'm here with this topic. And cool girl, somebody worked. It was smarter than me. Exactly. And that's what happens nine times out of 10. It's something that we're doing wrong. Eric says, "T, the couple from Sawyer Creek say hello." Yeah, I was supposed to go in there and see them, and I just didn't text them once I realized I wasn't going to go at the last minute because I knew they were going to be busy setting up. So thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. But yeah, I was supposed to go, but it was like I just couldn't do it. Wash your hands, and thank you for the info and tips. That's not only from me, that's from people in the comment section giving tips as well. Thank you all. You're a big help in this. Quilt Girl says, "I also just remove my needle when I have to change it for the next sewing time." Yes. So that's a good way of doing it too. When you leave, before you end the day, you go ahead and change your needle out. I tend to do that type of stuff when I'm like, after so many, like I know I'm working on the same project, but if I run out of a bobbin and I'm on this third or fourth project, then I'll go ahead and change it while I do a complete clean of the whole machine, and then I'll go ahead and change my needle out at that point. But like I said, the recommendation is for every 2 garments. So we sew in one quilt way more than what a seam will allow for 2 garments. So I know we're not going to be changing them as frequently as they like, but I would like people to get into the habit of changing them more than you do, because like I said, your machine will start sewing with a thunk if you don't change your needle, because it's a deflected needle. So just listen to your machine. It'll tell you when it's wanting one. Oh my gosh, Kevin made it in. He said, "Surprise from the plane in Denver." Hey, Kevin. He's working. Bonita says, she's talking to Bonita. She says, "I also use my phone and enlarge to read things too." But I didn't know that it could enlarge and read on the needle because it's so tiny. So I'm going to try that. Quick Guess says, "I'm going to try size 11 next time." And like I said, you can try anything. If you don't like it, then go back to the other one, but at least you've tried. For my vintage Singer, it takes regular needles, but you put them in sideways. Yeah, so yeah, it still works. Yeah, because I think when Singer first came out as the first sewing machine, of course they had to make Singer needles. And so I really don't think on those older manual machines that, like I said, Smith's needles, all the needles that I have in here works in my Singer Featherweight. But those 2 that I have was the Singer CXL and the XL1000. Those were the 2 that were real picky about having an actual Singer needle. It just wouldn't cooperate, especially when I was doing free motion quilting. They weren't going to cooperate if I had in a Smith's needle or a metallic needle, any of those other needles, titanium needles. It wanted the Singer basic needle. It was weird. Susan says, I remember when the pandemic started going through, started collecting my needles. I was worried I would not be able to get any. I had needles from 40 years ago, laughing out loud. Yes. And that's why I buy needles when they're on sale, then I don't have to worry about it. So there's really no excuse why I shouldn't be changing my needles. And that's probably why I never ordered more organ needles, because when I ran out, I was like, you need to use some of these other needles that are just hanging around here. And now I've got like a whole drawer where these Singer needles come from, because remember, I had 2 Singer machines. Those were the machines I was using on a regular basis. So I have a lot of Singer needles. But I'm not really sewing on those machines that require the Singer needles right now. So, you save money one way and it's a waste the other way, right? But, I still got the machines, and when I pull them out, I do, make sure that I put the correct needle back in them. So, and I've even taken my 2 older Singers that require the Singer needles. I've taken them to the dealer, and they given back to me with Smith's needles in them, and I just get it and take it right back out when I get home. They're using it and they're stitching with it. It's fine for them, but I know in the long run it's not going to work for me at home. So I take their needle out as soon as I get back home and put my Singer needle back into those machines. On these machines, I leave the needle in, because it doesn't really matter what needle is in these machines. But those 2 Singers, it does. Don says, on one of my machines, I forgot to change a plate and broke a needle and put a big burr inside. Had to have it serviced, yes, because then you have to go get your plate grinded, and then you can only grind in there for so long before it's too big and the thread starts catching and breaking. So you don't want to break needles. You could also damage your needle bar. This whole area up here that moves, that whole mechanism can be broken if you're breaking needles, because it's going in a direction and it doesn't want to go in, doesn't normally go into. So just got to be careful not to break needles. I sold over a pen once and it cost me $150 to get it fixed. That's from Wash Your Hands. Oh my gosh. Denise Soul Patch 33 is here saying hello. Hi Denise, welcome. 2 garments or maybe 1 garment for me. That's Eric Oda. It's so funny. Just think about if you making a garment. They say change your needle for every 2 garments. Okay, you got a pair of pants. So you're going to have your side seams on both sides. So that's 2. Your inner seam is 1 long seam. So we'll go ahead and say that's 4. And you got your hems on the bottom. You fold that up and iron it. So that's 6 on each leg. Let's say you put pockets in, so you sew the pockets together. So that's 7, 8. Then to the front side, back, 9, 10, 11, 12. So your waistband, we're not even going to do a placket. So you're looking at, we're just going to say 15 seams for elastic waist pants with pockets. 15, 16 seams. And you're going to make 2 of those and then change your needle. It's like, yeah, right. I know we're not going to change them that fast, but that's what the recommendation is. Joyce Hernandez came in and says, hi, everyone. Don says, my thread will break when I haven't changed out needles. Yep. It kills me to change needles because my fingers are too big. Takes me several tries. And there are like needle holders or needle grabbers that you can put the point of your needle in and it holds in place. There's also this thing I saw where it's a magnet that can that will hold your needle so you can put it into position. So you might want to look into that, Mario. I don't know if they're in Canada, but it should be by now for sure, because they've been out for a few years. So you might want to investigate that. Quilt Guest says, when I hear that tap, tap, tap noise, it's time to change that needle. Got that right. Hi, Rhonda Barlow. She says, hello, T and everyone. Let's see. Ice and Fire Creations here says, hello, T and everyone. Susan T says, I'm sewing on my Singer 404. The manual says, the answer to your sewing needs is at the Singer Sewing Center. Yes, sir. That's not much help at all, is it? That was just like the old Singer manual. They used to tell the women to get dressed and fix their hair and all of that and feed their husbands before they start to sew so that the experience would be enjoyable. That is too funny. A lot of people are a couple people are telling Mario about gadgets that he can buy as well. Kevin says, have we discussed what all Mr. Ode about in KC? He didn't even put a picture in the group. Just rude. And Wash Your Hands says, that's exactly what she broke, was the needle board got out of alignment. And that's what I'm saying. It's a big, that will mess up your 1/4 inch seam and everything else. You think you're sewing in a 1/4 inch seam and that needle bar is not in the right position. So Susan's talking to Eric. Oh, saying that manual was copyrighted in 1958, was it? Yeah. Yeah. They couldn't get away with that crap now, that's for sure. Norma Ozzy is here saying, good evening, quilt friends. Hi, Norma. Welcome. And June talking about laughing out loud. That was funny, T. I sewed in my PJs today. Well, I'm sure it wasn't enjoyable for you. It's like if I know I'm not even going outside, I hate to even get out of my pajamas sometimes. So, yeah. So we're real close to the 8 o'clock hour. I think I don't have any more comments about needles, so we're actually going to end on time today. Oh, Kevin saying that he wish he could sew, that he doesn't have a machine with him on this trip. That's right. You're going to be busy working, making some money so we can go shop hopping. I'm going to spend your money, Kevin. So, yeah. So we're just going to go ahead and end here because I don't see any more comments. I'm done with the topic. Thank you all to those that put tips in the chat box for the new people or, veteran quilters. Some people that were in here been sewing for years didn't know that there was a wing needle or a double needle or a twin needle. So, topics that can be gone over again and again. You either forget the information, you're not using the information, or you didn't know the information. So thank you all for your participation. We're going to go ahead and end here. We're going to say good night to everybody. Stay blessed, stay safe, be blessed, and quilt out. See you all on Saturday night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Sew and chat.